What starts as a peaceful family getaway at a remote farmhouse quickly spirals into a nightmare when the father begins mutating into a terrifying monster. As the family fights to survive, they must confront both the creature he's becoming and the dark secret that ties them all to a deadly curse. Will they escape, or will the monster inside destroy them all? Today, I'll be recapping the 2025 horror fantasy film Wolfman. So, keep your eyes wide open and stay safe. Drop a comment with your next movie request, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. 1995, Oregon. A hiker vanishes in the wild, sparking whispers of a virus spreading from the animals. But this isn't just a virus. Something darker is in the woods. Grady Lovell, a hunter, and his son Blake head out to the forest. As they climb into their hunting blind, Grady spots something moving fast through the trees. It's a creature, fast and wild, but Grady misses the shot. Tension rises, not just from the hunt, but between Grady and Blake. Grady's tough, unyielding nature grates on his son. As Grady harshly radios for help, Blake grows uneasy, feeling the weight of his father's frustration. Something is off. The air feels heavier, like the forest itself is holding its breath. Grady's strictness isn't just hurting Blake, it's pushing them both into a dangerous situation. They might be hunting an animal, but they're about to face a much bigger threat in the woods. The real hunt is about to begin. 30 years later, Blake is married to Charlotte, and they have a daughter, Ginger, living in San Francisco. One day, while out in the city, Ginger suddenly jumps in front of a strange man who makes a threatening comment toward her. Blake steps in, pushing the man away, but instead of protecting his daughter, his anger turns toward Ginger. He snaps at her, making her cry. Blake only softens when he realizes his mistake and apologizes. That night at dinner, Blake drops a bombshell. He's received a death certificate confirming his father Grady's passing. The conversation shifts, but Blake's mind seems distant, uninterested in Charlotte's stories about her own job. His focus is elsewhere, trapped in his past, while Charlotte struggles to connect. Something feels off in their relationship, like a shadow lurking just beyond the surface. The next day, Blake visits Charlotte at her job, his expression serious. He tells her that he feels their marriage is falling apart, and they've drifted so far apart from each other and from Ginger. Blake suggests they take a trip to his father's old farm. He's received the keys, and it's the perfect place for them to reconnect as a family. A weekend away, a fresh start. At least that's what Blake hopes. But something tells him that the past isn't done with them yet. The Lovells set off on their road trip to Oregon, excited for a fresh start. But when they reach the woods, they realize the road seems to end. They're stuck, unsure of how to proceed. That's when they spot a man in the old hunting blind, the same place Blake used to visit with his father. The man descends from the blind and introduces himself as Derek, a local who knew Grady and remembers Blake. He offers to help them find their way back to the farm, but something about him feels strange, like he's seen more than he's letting on. The journey's already starting to feel off. As night falls, Blake drives through the darkened woods, the tension rising. Suddenly, a creature on two legs leaps out of nowhere, slamming into their truck and sending it careening down a hill. The vehicle crashes, getting stuck in the trees. Derek is thrown from the truck, injured. Blake quickly helps Charlotte and Ginger scramble out, but they're not safe yet. The creature smashes through the window, its claws slicing into Blake's arm. Before he can react, the creature drags Derek away, disappearing into the night with him. Terrified but determined, Blake helps Charlotte and Ginger escape further into the woods. Desperate to find shelter, they run. Toward what? They don't know, but the looming house in the distance might be their only chance. Blake rushes his family into the house, the fear mounting. He tells them to stay put as he heads out to turn on the generator. Meanwhile, Charlotte tends to Blake's wound, her face filled with concern as she notices the huge bloody cut on his arm. After she wraps it up, something even stranger happens. Blake's teeth start to fall out. Sweat pours down his face, and his senses grow sharper, too sharp. He can hear the smallest sounds, the scuttle of a spider on the walls, the low growl of the creature outside. Blake approaches the door, panic rising. Suddenly, he feels something grab at his foot, the creature's claws reaching through the doggy door. Charlotte, thinking fast, grabs a hammer and strikes the creature's arm, forcing it to retreat, but the tension doesn't fade. The real nightmare is just beginning. Charlotte tries to care for Blake, but something's terribly wrong. Blake's vision begins to distort, and he can no longer understand a word Charlotte or Ginger says. His confusion grows, and his communication falters. He can barely scribble down that he feels like he's dying. The wound on his arm won't heal, growing more infected by the hour. Suddenly, Blake's behavior turns animalistic. He lunges at Charlotte, his eyes wild with fear and pain. Before she can react, he begins gnawing at his own wound, slurping it like a feral creature lost to hunger. Charlotte watches, horrified, as the man she loves becomes something unrecognizable. The line between man and monster is blurring before her eyes. Charlotte spots an abandoned truck outside and, in desperation, gets Blake and Ginger inside. Blake's appearance has changed. His teeth are sharper, and his eyes, once full of life, are now dark and soulless. She quickly tries to fix the engine, her hands trembling as she wipes the windshield. hoping to get the truck running. But then, out of nowhere, the Wolfman appears. He smashes through the windshield, his claws tearing through the glass and forcing the family to flee. They run, panic rising, and make it to the top of a greenhouse. From there, they can see the Wolfman stalking them below. As the creature rips at the structure, Blake knows what he has to do. He helps Charlotte and Ginger escape to safety before turning back to face the monster alone. The fight is on. Charlotte and Ginger finally make it back into the house, breathless and shaken. But their relief is short-lived as Blake returns, looking even more monstrous. His hair is almost gone, and thick fur now covers his body. He vomits up a severed finger, one that clearly belongs to the Wolfman. Ginger, desperate to reach her father, tries to talk to him, but Blake no longer understands. Instead, his twisted appearance and wild actions only frighten her more. He's lost, both to his own body and to the monster inside. The man they once knew is slipping away. The Wolfman bursts through the door, launching himself at Blake. The two clash in the living room, a brutal fight that shakes the house to its core. Blake, driven by a terrifying instinct, rips out the Wolfman's throat and begins feeding on him. As he pulls away, his eyes lock onto a tattoo on the Wolfman's arm, and a chilling realization hits him. The creature is Grady, his own father, now turned into this monstrous thing. Blake recoils, retreating into the shadows. Charlotte figures it out for herself and turns to Ginger, her voice heavy with truth. Blake's father passed a sickness onto him, and now Blake is becoming what his father was. Blake has fully transformed into a Wolfman, losing all control over his animal instincts. His humanity is gone, and all that's left is a monster driven by primal urges. Charlotte, in a frantic attempt to protect Ginger, drags her out of the house and runs into a nearby barn to hide. But Blake is relentless. He breaks through the barn doors, and despite the darkness, he uses his night vision to hunt them down. Charlotte's quick thinking gives them a moment to escape when Blake steps right into a bear trap she set. But Blake isn't finished. He chews through his own foot, determined to keep chasing them, a monstrous force that won't be stopped. Charlotte, desperate to protect Ginger, takes her up to the hunting blind, gripping the rifle she found. Blake climbs after them, but when Ginger sees him, she whispers that he just wants it all to end. Charlotte points the rifle at him, her hands shaking, but she can't pull the trigger. Suddenly, Blake lunges toward her, and in a moment of panic, Charlotte fires. The shot echoes through the woods, and Blake falls, defeated. Charlotte and Ginger climb down from the blind, their hearts heavy as they stay by Blake's side watching him die. The family is forever changed, their nightmare finally over. The film ends with Charlotte and Ginger walking hand in hand, their footsteps slow and heavy. They stop at the edge of the valley, the same place where Blake's father once took him. As they look out over the land, the weight of everything they've lost hangs in the air, but there's a quiet sense of peace, knowing that despite it all, they've made it through together. So, which awesome movie should we recap next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and let's make it happen. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you never miss out on our movie recaps. We've got plenty more coming your way. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Produced by Warner Movie Recaps.